Welcome to the Cabincast, your Getaway Primer.
The Cabincast is brought to you by Roughing It in Style. Roughing It in Style's family business was created to supply folks like you with unique furnishings that fit homes where memories are made. And like these memories, their handmade furniture and decor is made to last. They emphasize creative innovation in interior design, cabinet design, and custom furniture. Their designers are available to help you create spaces that are warm, inviting, and fit your unique style. There are 2 locations, one in the Northwoods of Wisconsin, in Harshaw, 10 miles south of Minocqua, and one out west in Fort Collins, Colorado. Find out more today at roughingitinstyle.com.
Hello.
Hey, Erik. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. What's new in your life?
Well, we got a good interview coming up with one of our designers here at Roughing It.
I was really excited when we did this interview because I really enjoy talking to our guest, and she is just full of good wisdom that our listeners are going to love.
Yeah, and actually, unbeknownst to us, one of our really good clients here at Roughing It that's worked with Laura Rose, our designer, actually stopped by your shop and then said hello to you and then sent an email. So I was going to read that email from Jim. And thank you, Jim, for sending it. Well done, Kristin. It was nice to meet you this past Friday at White Arrows. Learning about both of you, who are genuine and passionate, is truly a pleasure. You're able to put into words your thoughts, which are hard to do for those who have not experienced up north. Looking forward to listening to Laura from Roughing It, who has made my wife so happy. Kristin, you have inspired my daughter, Lindsay, through your talents. We all love comfort food, and you're our comfort podcast. Bubble gum for our ears. Lastly, Saturday afternoon, I listened to the distillery episode. Instead of a primer, I almost turned around in Madison for the evening. I'm stopping next week to buy infused pine vodka. Well done and good luck. Jim.
I love that email, and I loved meeting Jim. His family is wonderful. And what he said is some of the things that we have heard from so many of our listeners, that people from around the country want to come here just to go to supper clubs, like from our first interview, or they can't wait to go put the distillery on their list for things they must do when they come here. So that's been really neat. And now stopping to see Laura is going to for sure be on their list.
Absolutely.
Because she is a really special designer, and that's not easy. I mean, what makes a great designer, Erik?
I think that people have an idea of what an interior designer is. And I know here at Roughing It, we're in a little bit of a niche area that we're not your typical downtown big city interior designer doing big lofts or condos with all the fanciest, trendiest things. But we get to do things that are really neat getaways for people. It's really down to earth, and also our customers come in and they're down to earth and easy to work with. But I think that people who haven't worked with designers before have this, whether it's from TV or some kind of media, of an idea of what working with an interior designer would be like. I just wanted to talk a little bit about what to look for in a good designer, because the difference between a good designer and someone who's not going to give you what you want, it can be a fine line, and it can also not fall on what just like talent. You could have a really talented designer that's amazing at decorating homes that's just not good to work with. And on the other hand, you can have someone who's maybe not the best at working on homes, but they're really wonderful to work with, and you end up with that in-between thing. And I mean, Laura is one of those people. She gets complimented all the time, and I was really thinking about like what makes her really good and what makes a designer in general. And just a couple of the things really off the top of my head are they need to be really good listeners.
Definitely.
Yeah, and you have to come with an idea. So, some people just say, hey, it's an open. I mean, our house is your canvas. Just paint what you want, and that's really fun too. Those people are fun to work with. They're just like, make my house look amazing.
Right.
But a good designer is going to talk with you and listen to you and take down notes like, what do you want? What's your style? And they're there to create what you as a customer want or a client want. And listening is like the most important thing.
I would agree for sure.
And then there's also, they need to have enough of a backbone to say, hold up now, we're veering off in a wrong direction, and to tell you that's not going to look great. I know that's what you guys want, but here's the reasons. And if they back it up with legit reasons, that makes a big difference too, because you want someone who's going to listen to you, but also stop you from making mistakes in your home that you're going to regret later.
Right.
So they need to have enough backbone to do that. And then you want someone who really enjoys what they do and is having fun. If you have a really serious designer that's just by the book, follows all the rules perfectly, isn't willing to bend a little bit to do really fun things, get in the same vibe that you're feeling, that's not helpful either. So you want somebody who's going to really find that groove with you and make the experience enjoyable. It is work for the designer, but a lot of designers got into the business because they're incredibly passionate about what they do, and it's something really fun for them that they enjoy.
And I think the customers, the getaways, are their passion project too. So when you mix that with a designer that's passionate about what they're doing, that is a match made in heaven.
Yeah, and that's really key, is that you get two people who are really having fun and they're in a great mindset to make it enjoyable. And at your getaway, you do have, I would think we talk about this in the interview, that you can have a lot more fun at your getaway because it's not your day-to-day. It's a little bit of, it's an adventure when you go up to your place and you want it to be a little bit different. You're not there all the time, so it can be a little whimsical and fun. We talk about that in the upcoming interview, so keep an ear out for that. But good designer, there are some just great ones out there. You shouldn't be intimidated by your designer.
Great point.
When you work with them, it needs to be someone you're comfortable with. And in turn, to be a good client for designers, just come into it with a little bit of thoughtfulness on what your end goal is. You don't have to say, I need this, this, this. You don't need a whole list. You don't need to do the work for them, but you have to have a vision in your head a little bit of what you want to put together. And that helps give them a compass, give them a North Star to point to.
Make a Pinterest board of some of those favorite things.
Exactly. And I think Laura mentions that too. Yeah. Just some general guidelines on what you're getting. And because it really is a true collaboration when it's design, where it's the actual, you're living in it, physical fabrics that you're feeling and the lamps that you're turning on and those things. It's important to get somebody that gets in the same vibe as you.
And I also think a great thing, we're sitting in our podcast studio at night, and it's the design studio at Roughing It in Style during the day, where you can feel the fabrics. You're not just ordering everything offline and then hoping it's the right thing.
Right.
But the designer can help you feel the fabrics, know exactly, how durable it is, and just the touch and feel of all of it and make it real.
Yeah. And when you are dealing with materials, seeing them in person is really important.
Yeah.
When you can. And a good designer is going to talk to you about, the hand, which is the feel of a fabric or a leather. They're going to talk about how things work well together in a room, how the lighting hits it. They might take your fabric samples outside. There's just so many different things that a good designer has in their repertoire to make your home look beautiful. And that's just something that you shouldn't be intimidated to find. A good designer is going to find a way to make you comfortable. And
I think also to be comfortable to know you can work with a designer on a small project all the way to the whole house. So you just might not be able to get your dining room to fit the way you want it to and need some ideas for that. So you can do small to big projects with someone like Laura. Yeah, someone like Laura. Yeah, and any designer at any firm should be just as happy to do a guest bedroom, basement, rec room, more than, it doesn't have to be your whole house. You can, if you're stuck on an area in your home, you're having trouble really making it work, bringing a designer in even for a small project that's a great point. And another place I like to get tips for my cabin is cabinlife.com. It is full of great articles, and they actually just recommended the Cabincast. They did an article on us recently. It was a really big honor and surprise to us. So we thank them for that. We'll put a link in the show notes to that. Cabinlife.com is one of the places that I go to often. And this is one article that's a great example of why this is a great resource for everybody. And we'll link to this article at cabinlife.com as well. But it's 10 tips for small cabin decorating. And it just starts out with this little intro. Even if you describe your getaway as smallish, you can still craft it into a comfortable, efficient retreat. To keep your space from feeling cramped, follow these key techniques for creating the illusion of never-ending space. Now, if we could just figure out how to create the never-ending weekend.
Ooh, that is something.
Right?
Yeah.
Maybe we should get on that, how to create the never-ending weekend. But just quick, easy reads on the website, and here are the 10 tips for small cabin decorating. Declutter. If your cabin has become a storage shed for your extended family's hand-me-down furniture and rummage sale knickknacks, then it's time to edit. Clutter will prevent your small retreat from feeling like an oasis, so pitch the stuff you don't love or need.
Pick out a new color palette. Whites, creams, and ivories create the illusion of spaciousness by reflecting light. You can also use a monochromatic color palette without distracting color changes. Viewers will get the impression of limitless space. Try painting the cabin walls a light new color, then upcycle that rummage sale dresser by painting it a similar shade to blend in with the walls. Hang window treatments that mimic the wall color as well.
Number 3, create a fun focal point. Remember that clutter? If you couldn't part with your endearing collection of moose-themed salt and pepper shakers, that's fine. But instead of scattering them through the cabin, arrange them as a collection. Think shadow box on the living room wall. A focal point allows eyes to rest and distracts them from noticing the dimensions of the room. Be careful, though. Too many focal points will result in an unwelcome visual clutter.
Hang depth-defying artwork. You want to hang a picture of your son grinning as he shows off his big catch from last summer's fishing adventure. Opt for the version that shows the lake and shoreline in the background rather than the close-up of his dimples. It's tempting, we know. Images of landscape lend the illusion of depth to a room.
That's a great one. Invent bonus space with mirrors is number 5. Place a mirror on a wall and it'll create another dimension, almost like adding on to a room. Position mirrors where they'll flaunt natural light from windows, give viewers a double dose of your amazing lake views, show off your collection of vintage fishing poles, etc.
Amp up the lighting as much as possible. Let natural light into your cozy cabin to highlight existing space. Dark corners seem like non-existent space, making a room feel smaller. To evenly distribute light, scatter a few lamps in a room rather than using a single overhead fixture. Choose simple window treatments that are easy to tuck away when the sun rises.
Scale objects to fit. An overstuffed couch in your petite cabin living room will look, well, overstuffed. Instead, pick furniture with clean lines that scale down to fit the space. That said, don't clutter your space with lots of tiny furniture. Maintain balance by using just the pieces you need for comfort in sizes that fit your body and your rooms.
Employ the amazing multitasking object. Choosing the ottoman that doubles as extra seating, the cushioned bench that holds extra sheets and pillows for guests, etc.
Number 9, use vertical lines to create breathing room. Unbroken vertical lines create the illusion of height, so run vertical elements like drapes and bookcases from floor to ceiling instead of cutting them off partway up the wall. It's kind of like outfits, too.
Yeah. Number 10. Think see-through decorating. A room will look more spacious if viewers can see through the furniture, shelves, coffee tables, etc. You can accomplish this by selecting leggy furniture, like a rustic log armchair with twiggy armrests if you don't have toddlers or roughhousing middle schoolers to worry about. A glass coffee table is also a great option.
So just one example of tons and tons of great articles on cabinlife.com to give people a lot of hints about taking care of their cabins and decorating their cabins.
And if keeping all these tips in your head seems like a lot of work, you're going to want to find somebody that has all these cool things in her head, like Laura.
Somebody like Laura.
So without further ado, enjoy our interview with Laura Rose from Roughing It in Style.
We're excited today to welcome our friend Laura. Laura Rose is an interior and cabinet designer at Roughing It in Style. She has been in the interior design field for nearly 20 years and thrives on creating designs that suit her client's style in ways they never dreamed possible. She earned a fine arts degree in interior design and has worked on upscale projects from New York to Los Angeles to London to the Northwoods of Wisconsin. Welcome, Laura.
Thank you. Hi.
Hi.
Laura is one of the designers, like we said, at Roughing It in Style here, and just does awesome work for our clients up here. So she, we'll talk a little bit about her background, but she started her design life at a large corporation doing design work, and that's where kind of the international travel came into mind. So do you want to talk a little bit about your background?
Sure. I worked as an in-house designer for a large printing company that had sales offices and plants all across the country and some sales offices across the pond too. I created designs for our employees to work, but then also comfort spaces for our clients to come to so that they didn't have to stay in hotels and things like that. So we had tailored spaces for them. So a log cabin, for example, at one of our kind of country location plants. And then in north of New York City in Saratoga Springs, we had a Victorian mansion that they could stay at. So just a whole bunch of fun things. The London office that I did was a sales office. And that was really challenging because I had to convert everything to metric.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And so that was interesting. But yeah, I just gained a lot of different experience working there, doing a range from modern to rustic to office work. So
How incredible. What a neat experience. And yeah, way to learn.
yeah, it was good. Very good learning experience.
And then you've been up in the Northwoods for how many years?
I think it's not going on 8 years now.
8 years.
Yeah.
And you had your own design firm as a solo operation. You were actually a customer of Roughing It.
Yes.
brought your clients in here. And then we ended up working together and you came on board and you've done fantastic work for the shop here. So one of the things that is really awesome is Laura has a really good idea of how to create like special places for as a getaway. And think about a traditional interior designer and traditional homes or spaces in the city or the suburbs. And there's something really different about designing getaways. Do you want to talk a little bit about those differences are and how people live and work differently and spend time in their homes?
I think in a getaway space, you want to make everything very usable and everything very comforting, a place where people can put their feet up and not have to worry about being too proper, just enjoying themselves, having fun. And whether that's a big group of people or just your small family, creating different zones within a house, but using all of it and just really making it rugged and comfortable and embracing the view that you have outside. You have like a built-in piece of art just right out your window.
Great point. You're right. That's such a focal point that you want to include in it.
Yeah, and the
Yeah.
textures and materials that you get to work with, like you don't, like sometimes when you think about using a space that's rugged and that you can put your feet up in, you think about it like, oh, is it going to be sloppy or is it just going to like, oh, don't, it should be like a college dorm room where you can just break everything. But like you can make it look incredible and look amazing and look as detailed as you can at back home. It's just a matter of the textures you choose, the materials, and the setup and furniture pieces.
For sure. Anything that looks better with use. Cheap dorm room furniture doesn't look better with use, but a well-designed space that takes into account how you want to use it and what you have going on outside and what the space really needs is super valuable in order to make the home last and be beautiful and be a place you want to go to. forever.
I know Erik and I were talking before the show, before we started recording, a little conversation about how there tend to be sometimes trends in decor for maybe your house back home, but for vacation homes, it can really be this timeless look where you can invest in pieces that can last for your family forever.
I agree. And I think a space in a big city, maybe that has to be on trend, and that's fun to be on trend. And of course, we designers love to keep up with the trends. In a retreat space, in a getaway space, maybe you want to escape from the worry of let's keep up with everything, but make it just you. What have you always dreamed of your getaway space being? And let's create that.
Yeah. What makes you unique and your family unique. And then as a designer, you can work with people to bring that out in the interior design.
Yeah.
That's probably the fun part. Is that one of your favorite parts?
Absolutely. It's like qualifying and asking questions and seeing what they've always hoped and imagined in this space. Because living and having a space in a beautiful rustic setting, there's a sense of wonder there. Like, what am I going to see out the window? You know, what can I do today? How can I relax? How can I just escape some of the hustle and bustle of my real life and enjoy this one for whatever time you have there.
Right? Yeah, and it's fun. People can leave all their clutter and their stuff at their house and get away. And then they can come up to a full house or a cottage or a little cabin. Or, I mean, there's so many different iterations of a getaway. And they don't have a stack of bills sitting on the desk. They don't have to worry about their winter clothes or they can have their getaway stuff. That your closet might have water skis in it in the wintertime, and in the summertime, you're going to have winter skis in your closet. So your storage is so much different, and you're really designing and building houses around using all the space in a really fun way. Talk a little bit, Laura, about storage. What is different about storage in getaway houses?
One thing I know that everyone wants in their getaway house is like a great mudroom type space, because there's where you're going to hang your outdoor gear when you come in, or you're going to have your beach towels hanging there so you can quick grab them, or your picnic basket or whatever. And so it's nice to have a really thoughtful, well-planned transition area before you get into the main part of the house. And whether that's on the lakeside, the forest side, the front door, whatever that is, I think that space is super important. And to design, whether that's like open lockers, I don't think it has to be closed closet storage. You want to just be able to see and just grab whatever it is and go have fun. Like you're not rooting around for whatever gear you need.
And it contains that type of clutter too, where you don't have to see it the rest of the time.
In a beautiful way, like open storage way, but whether that's baskets and hooks, or it could be simple, it could be designed cubbies too.
There's so much creativity that goes into all of it.
And then entertaining in a lake space, you're bringing people up there. You want to bring friends. You want to invite family. You know, most people want to share that space with their kids and their kids' friends, and you know, they turn it into a tradition. So how do you create an environment up at a getaway that makes people want to come back, or that kind of creates memories for the people and for your visitors? What type of decisions do you make?
I think trying to maintain an open floor plan and also having like a large gathering table or even an island somewhere where everyone can kind of participate in, whether it's cooking up something for the whole group, or maybe it's a bar and it's making your favorite cocktails for your friends and family, or maybe it's a game room too. You know, there's always going to be rainy days too, so create spaces that have a room for a board game, room for foosball, or whatever that makes you happy when it's raining.
What about sleeping more guests? A lot of people at their getaway want to bring extra family, extra friends. Everybody wants to come along. You never knew how many friends you had till you had a lake house. I think I've seen that on a sign somewhere, and it's so true. So what's an easy way to make more sleeping spaces in your getaway?
So in your getaway home, don't be afraid to just pile on the bunk beds and create custom bunk beds so there's 3 high. But then you got to think about the adults too. So maybe that room has bunk beds and a queen bed or something. If you don't have the luxury of an extra guest room, though, you can do beautiful. There's comfortable pull-out sofas that you can do and just try to locate that maybe in a off the path type place so that the person has some sort of sense of privacy, because they're not going to be out in the open and in front of a large bank of windows or something, but tucked away somewhere. Maybe there's a small nook you could create that has a day bed with a pull-out trundle. Those are just some thoughts off the top of my head, but it all depends on what floor plan you have.
I like that idea though, because trundle bed or some of the pull-outs, they're so versatile. So you have extra sleeping when you need it, but then when you don't, it's more seating.
Absolutely.
So that's great ideas.
Yeah, we've been doing a lot of queen beds with a twin or a twin extra long flipped. So that if you picture where the headboard of a normal queen bed goes, right above that is a lofted twin. So you actually have room for a queen bed to fit with a ladder that goes up to a nice twin. And back to the bunk beds, if you want to sleep adults, but you only have room for like the width of a twin bed, they do twin extra longs, which are usually good enough for even a tall adult
Yeah,
to
I
sleep
think
on.
that's the same as a length of a king, probably. So probably would be good.
Yeah, and we've even done it where you take like 2 twin extra long beds pushed together is the size of they do that a lot in Europe. I think they have like split beds that come apart, and they usually there's some sort of fitting or something that slides in between the beds when they get pushed together so you can sleep more. So if you have kids that come up, but you also have couples that you want to share, you can come up with a system where you have 2 twin extra long beds that you push together. That's just kind of it's novel. You have to get creative sometimes. We had just at a client home that was a super small cabin. They're like, we need to sleep 10 in here. We're like, okay, how are we going to do this?
Bring on the challenge.
Yeah. Ended up getting realistic, and they did a nice queen sleeper, and then they did a twin sleeper that actually pulled out of a chair and a half that was tucked in a corner that was beautiful. It was awesome and really fit the functionality of the room, because it's always a balance.
One of the things I was wondering so many times, and I'm sure you guys see this here a lot, people come in and there's almost so many options to choose from, talking about sleeping, a lot of people, and all the bedroom options. It's very hard sometimes for people to decide what they want. So I would assume working with a designer is a big benefit. What do you think some of the benefits of working with a designer are?
I know the questions to ask to kind of draw out and figure out the most important things, because maybe we can't meet, every item on that checklist, but if we can get most of them or the high priorities, that's what I would want to focus on. So I think that designers tend to be really good at question and answer thing and kind of reading between the lines and listening really well, coming up with ways to check all those boxes.
If you had tips and a few things that would help people, if you're going to choose to work with a designer, what kind of tips or ideas makes it much more likely to be a successful experience and a positive experience for folks to get out what they want and need?
I think coming up with a list of things that you want, and also a list of things maybe that you don't want. Mm-hmm. And then really trying to dial that in. Having a budget, that's nice, is kind of knowing what you want to put into this project.
Do you have any other tips that really help the design process?
If you have any pictures or things you've saved on Pinterest or things like that of rooms that you're attracted to, that helps narrow down your style and kind of draw out what that style might be, even though it may look kind of separate, but I can bring them all together and sort of figure out what your style might be. And maybe it's a cohesion of a few different elements, but sometimes that makes for a wonderful eclectic environment too.
I bet it does. And for so many people that it's hard to articulate what they like, I bet bringing pictures in or showing their Pinterest board on their phone to you really helps them be able to share it. So that's a great tip.
Absolutely.
So, Kristin, I was thinking about designing and the situation you went through where you're living at your getaway now. What how did it go for taking your like home life and everything you had there, and then now you have this getaway, and then transitioning your getaway into your home? Was that hard to do? Did it take away a little bit of the magic, or what? How did that work?
No, it was really interesting. And for new listeners, I think you can go back to our first episode and listen as Erik and I get to know each other, and you hear the story about our vacation home becoming our permanent home because we never wanted to leave it. So we thought, let's just flip-flop life and live there all the time. I think the biggest thing, and some of it had to do with our kids' ages, but when we would come up to visit on the weekends, the kids all slept in the bunk room. So we were pretty much using the master bedroom and the bunk room the whole time. Then as some became teenagers, we decided to move up there, and then there's littler kids, and it was going to be an everyday thing. All the kids in the bunk room was not going to work. So we had to figure out how to move kids into the other bedrooms. Storage. It was great to hear Laura's ideas about storage, because that was a big change when it became a full-time home, was how much storage we needed differently than vacation. Like you said, just having swimsuits and a few outfits for vacation time was different when it was all the clothes. And just some of the flow for as people came up to visit, and how people would the kids would need to move rooms, or different things would happen. A lot of those things that you kind of learn as you go. Having a designer ahead of time, designing the house or the spaces, could really help think through some of those things, kind of the drop zones too. We had to add a cubby space for the kids' school things, because we had a lot more things to be dropped in, or being there in the winter where all the boots go. So that's a really important thing that you brought up, Laura,
and maybe homework stations.
Yep. And some of those things could transition well that you brought up about places that you can play games or do puzzles, can become homework spots later on. One of the only things my husband and I debate about is where homework should be done. He is a desk guy and a lamp guy, and you sit at your desk and you do your homework. And I'm like, you sit on the bed and you sit on the couch and wherever you're comfortable. I mean, when you're designing places, do you ever come across like couples that can't just like agree on how spaces should be used? How do you handle couples that have disagreements?
That's a almost daily thing for me. Couples disagreeing definitely happens, and it's natural and it's okay. It's just, how do we compromise? Can we create both of those things and have the best of both worlds? And then maybe we have both options available to the kids, and as long as it's functioning and they're excelling in school and meeting expectations, then I think that's okay. Right. And you let it go.
Vote for me.
Kristin will be clipping this and just, this is the first thing when her and her husband are in the car. She's going, let me just play this a little.
Exactly, right?
See, I was right.
Yes.
Yeah, that's fun. So, and then one of the other things is just that I've been thinking a lot about is finding extra spaces for storage too. In cabins, we've been utilizing underneath beds a ton, because there's a lot. I mean, we deal with little teeny cottages, and people are starved for space. Of course, there's exteriors. People put stuff in garages, but if you need to utilize space, adding drawers underneath beds is a really nice thing. We've been doing a ton of that lately. 2 drawers underneath your bed, or even out of the footboard, depending on how much space you have side to side. So that's been really good. And then Laura does a great job of utilizing kitchen storage options. Like, what are some of the things that people have been adding to kitchens lately that makes it really nice?
There's so many awesome organizers within the cabinets that you can do. And I'll get lists from people of what kind of things that they cook with. So whether you're a chef that uses a lot of small appliances, we would design that differently and have more pull-out drawers or something like that. But if you're into the little gadgets and you need to separate them and be able to find them, there's storage options for that too. Back to your point about utilizing every bit of space throughout your cabin too. Like, I'm a big proponent of multi-use furniture. A coffee table that has storage, ottomans that can be moved around so you can seat extra guests even in a small space. They're small, they're movable for people. Even chairs that, say you put chairs at your dining room table, but they're also fantastically comfortable, can just pull over into your living room too. or even bigger captain's type chairs at each end of your dining room would look fabulous, just used as you could watch a movie in a chair like that. So
What's your favorite space to decorate? Do you love kitchens the most, bedrooms, living rooms, mud rooms?
I love challenging spaces, some like a weird space, like I don't know what to do with this kind of space. And then I like talking to the client and figuring out what are they lacking, like what would be awesome to use that for, and just delving into their personality and figuring that out. I just had a client recently who they have a ton of guests come up because they bought a lake home and a ton of people want to come and visit them. But then they sort of want to escape from those people sometimes. and the kid can get to be too noisy and too whatever. So we carved out a little space in their master bedroom that has two comfortable chairs. They're each their own. They're not matching chairs, but we coordinated them. So they both feel super comfortable. It had a built-in like coffee bar, so they can just go up there and have peace for a half an hour, just them, or a glass of wine at the end of the day, just them. And their guests don't mind. They're still downstairs doing whatever. So it's perfect.
That's brilliant. Yeah.
We wanted to open this up too in a little bit, but one of the things for the Cabincast that we love is having you, the listener, send in your questions for things. So if you have any questions and you want to kind of ask a designer, you have any like weird little spots, you want to email us photos, just email us at getaway@thecabincast, and we'll maybe have Laura on a future episode here to answer some of the questions and kind of go over that stuff, because she's awesome. She designed my whole kitchen at my house, and I have some of my favorite little features in there that she came up with that's really fun. So if you have questions about that, just shoot an email over to us and we'll help you out, and Laura will answer them.
Yeah, that would be great. Laura, what are some of the different styles that you do designs for in homes? Everything in a log cabin always look like
a mountain
typical
lodge or something.
Yeah. What are the different kind of variety of styles that people can choose for their getaways?
Some of my favorites are I have a whole list because I love them all.
Right.
But I like a modern industrial vibe where you mix different metals and with rustic wood can be super fun. Or like an old world cottage type feel where it's like that fox hunt look and you have warm colors and like a Ralph Lauren kind of feel to it. I think an old school, like fun vintage look would be fun. So say you're into skiing or something and you find some great old like vintage ski posters and frame those beautifully and just embrace that kind of après ski look in your house. A lake cottage could be, if you think of a Martha's Vineyard look or something, maybe you want that with crisp whites and blues and things like that. That's really pretty. One of my favorites is the boho looking nature look where you've got fun nubby textures and rustic wood again, but pine cones and just little gatherings from the forest is in there, along with like sheepskin or what, just great texture.
You sleep in a bird's nest.
Right? You get used to it. Oh, I know. There's so many options and it's so much fun. I think I need more cabins.
Yeah.
I want one of each.
That's a good idea.
I want one of each of those too.
That makes you kind of get that with your job. You get to decorate in so many styles and fun ways. And for a little while,
I have
yours.
to try to dial it back in my own house so I don't have every single style that I like going on.
I bet that's true. Oh, I bet that's true. Right?
Yeah, use a fun boat for your island somehow. Back at home that might be too whimsical or seem kind of funny, but in a lake house, it's the conversation piece every time you come up.
Yeah. That's brilliant. Yeah.
We wanted to open this up too in a little bit, but one of the things for the Cabincast that we love is having you, the listener, send in your questions for things. So if you have any questions and you want to kind of ask a designer, you have any like weird little spots, you want to email us photos, just email us at getaway@thecabincast, and we'll maybe have Laura on a future episode here to answer some of the questions. And kind of go over that stuff because she's awesome. She designed my whole kitchen at my house, and I have some of my favorite little features in there that she came up with that's really fun. So if you have questions about that, just shoot an email over to us and we'll help you out, and Laura will answer them.
Yeah, that would be great.
Or
what are some of the different styles
I'm working with some people right now
that
who
you
have
do
to
designs for in
unfortunately
homes?
tear down
Everything
the cottage
in a
that-
log cabin
that's
always
on the land
look
that
like
they're using. But we're saving
the
the French
typical-
doors and putting
Yeah, what are the different
barn door
kind of
hardware
variety
on,
of styles that people
in
can
their
choose for
master
their
bedroom.
getaways?
So there's a little retreat space off the master bedroom, and these gorgeous French doors that they're too small, they can't fit anywhere and to be used in that sense, but on barn door hardware they can slide out of the way and just look like a cool architectural feature and be a remembrance of the cabin that they grew up coming to.
You find some skiing or something, you find some great old like vintage ski posters and frame those and just embrace that kind of après ski look in your house. A lake cottage could be, if you think of a Martha's Vineyard look or something like that, with crisp lights and blues and things like that. That's really pretty. One of my favorites is the bulb.
It looks like it's a lot of texture.
A lot of places for critters to live.
But they joke about it.
Little gatherings from the forest along with like sheepskin or just great texture.
You sleep in a bird's nest.
Right? You get used to it. Oh, I know. There's so many options and it's so much fun. I think I need more cabins. I want one of each.
Yeah.
That makes you kind of get that with your job. You get to decorate in so many styles and fun ways, and for a little while, it's yours. Right? I bet that's true. Oh, I bet that's
More
true.
functional. If there are cool architectural features you can save and stylize, that is really fun.
So now shag carpet has been put in the category of architectural
Architectural
art.
art. Yeah.
You heard it here on the Cabincast.
Yeah.
You can definitely frame shag carpet.
You can and you should.
Oh my goodness. But that is so true. And sometimes I think you're so surprised to find out what you're nostalgic for. You know, what that memory is that you're going to wish you still had or kept. So those are great stories. What's another one of your most favorite projects that you've worked on, Laura?
Let me think. Oh, a client recently he lives far away. We did his entire house together, he and I, over the phone and through email. And
Now his home is up here, and he lived really far away.
He lives far away in Florida, and he has a home up here in northern Wisconsin that he just bought, and we furnished the entire thing and all new light fixtures and everything. But we did everything over the phone, and he is just and wanted to do this for his wife and kids too, and have it be a surprise for when they came up and saw it for the first time. And it was just such a fun project because he really, just what we were talking about, embraced kind of like, this is a getaway house. This can be a little more creative. This can be a little different and outside the box, and thought about all the spaces that his kids would use. And it just turned out fantastic because we had just really unique pieces that we put in there. In fact, one was a desk for their kids to do puzzles and coloring on, and it looks like the side of an airplane with a surface coming out of it. It just looks fantastic, and it's kind of a nod to the area too, because a lot of the travel up here comes by small airplane craft and things like that. We don't have a major airport up here, so It's just a lot of pieces like that we were able to put in that house, and it was turned out beautiful.
That's great.
Thank you so much for coming and spending some time here. And I do want to reiterate, if you guys have any questions for Laura that she can answer in the future, just shoot us an email, Getaway at the Cabincast, and I'm sure we'll have her on again soon.
Yeah, I think we'll keep her on speed dial.
Thanks.
We have some questions. So
Yeah. Thank you so much.
yeah, thanks for being here,
Thank you,
Laura.
guys.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Cabincast. You can find details and more information in the show notes on our website at www.thecabincast.com. Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen so you won't miss a single episode. Follow us on your favorite social media channels. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at The Cabincast. We'd also love to hear from you. We want to hear your getaway and cabin stories. For a chance to have your story featured on an upcoming episode, email us at getaway@thecabincast.com. Until next week, enjoy the journey.